Hello, it's April and welcome to Snapdragon Hollow. Today I thought I would share with you a reading vlog. If you are new to my channel, I usually share videos about dollhouse miniatures as well as crafts, as well as some of my other hobbies and collectibles. And I thought that I would go ahead and put my book vlogs on this channel as well because reading is also one of my favorite hobbies. So I thought that I would share all of the books that I've read so far this year, share with you some of my Goodreads goals, and then share with you some of my upcoming books that I'll be reading and some of my plans for October. So I hope you'll make yourself a nice cup of hot tea or coffee and join me to talk about the books that I've been reading. First, I'm going to go ahead and get a sip of my tea. I love this beautiful autumn mug that I have. It is the end of September and well into fall. The weather is rainy and windy outside right now. A perfect fall day to enjoy a cup of tea and have a chat about all of the books that I've been reading. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with some of the books that I read earlier in the year. Now, I've always done my book vlogs on my channel, April's Home. So if you're here from April's Home, welcome. I'm going to be sharing my books at Snapdragon Hollow for now so that I can keep my April's Home channel more for recipes and grocery hauls and all of the things that I like to share at April's Home. And Snapdragon Hollow is where I share some of my more whimsical hobbies and crafts and things like that. I thought that a reading vlog would be really fun to have here on this channel. So what I've been reading so far this year. Now you can see behind me a bunch of books. My house is filled with books. This is a really bookish house here. I have always loved books and reading and things like that. I volunteer with my local friends of the public library. I worked at a library in high school, the high school library, and yes, I just love books. So we have a lot of books around here, and in some of my book vlogs, which I hope to start sharing weekly, we'll see if I can keep up with that schedule, I'll be sharing with you some of my books and bookshelves and collections, and we'll just be hearing a lot of things about books. I'm hoping to do that every Friday, and I'll share more about that with you in the future. But let's go ahead and talk about my Goodreads goals and books that I've read so far this year. Last year I read 50 books, and that is, for me, that's a lot of books. I have a lot of other hobbies and things that I do, so finding the time to read that is a lot. But I will also say I love children's literature. So some of those books are children's books, like little children's books, as well as middle grade books, classic children's literature. And I also have plenty of other literary fiction, classics, and things like that. So, and even some nonfiction thrown in. I love all sorts of book genres. So this will be a real mix of books here. So this year I thought that I would have a goal of reading 75 books because I have so many smaller books that I do like to read and talk about. But this year got so crazy busy, I've had no time to sit down and keep updated on my book reading and vlogging and things like that. But now that fall is here, I have a lot more time to read. Fall is my favorite time to read. I love curling up with a book when the weather is a bit blustery or rainy and just spend a good portion of the day reading. So I haven't gotten very far on my Goodreads goals so far this year. We'll see if we can make it. It'll be quite the marathon if I'm able to get in 75 books this year. Let me go ahead and check how many books I've got so far. Yes, I've only read 12 of 75 books this year, and some of them are children's books. So not very good so far, but we'll see. We're going to keep trying. I have all of the books that I've read here this year except for one. One of them was a Valentine book, Cranberry Valentine, by Wend Devlin. I am really interested in reading the rest of the Cranberry series. It's a children's picture book, and it's just really cute about a little town. It has like some old-fashioned illustrations. I'll have to get that out and share that with you, or share with you, I know I'm going to be reading I believe a Thanksgiving one and a Christmas one coming up, so I'll be sharing with you about that. So that was one of the first books I read this year. This was also one of the first books I read this year. This is called The Mushroom Center Disaster. It's a very interesting book. I love mushrooms, so I always tend to pick up mushroom-themed books and children's books. This is by N.M. Bodecker, pictures by Eric Blegvad. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. And I believe this was written, yes, in 1974, so a year after I was born. And it's just a really interesting book about these little bugs and crickets and things that live in this mushroom village. And a tragedy happens when there's some polluting that happens from, larger people, humans, come through and sort of cause a bit of a disaster in this little mushroom village. As you can see, cute little mushroom village. There are little black and white illustrations throughout the book of the bugs' little adventures. Here are some little snails and things like that. It was a really cute book. I really enjoyed reading it. I thought that it was adorable. Here they are kind of fixing up their little town after the mushroom center disaster. So very cute little book, very 1970s vintage type of book. I really enjoyed that. So that was one of the first little children's books that I read this year. I really started out the year with a lot of children's books. Sometimes when I'm in a reading rut, that's what I do, is I start with children's books because they're quick to read. You can read them in, sometimes under an hour, and it's just, the pictures are lovely. This is a reread for me, the first time that I logged it in on Goodreads though, because this book I've had since I was in high school. This is called The Unicorn Alphabet. I believe it was a Children's Book of the Month Club members book, and I had joined that when I was younger. This is The Unicorn Alphabet, and it's really beautiful. I'm also a gardener, and I love flowers and things like that. So in addition to loving fables and fairy tales and folklore, I also enjoy gardening, and this book kind of blends those two together. It talks about the different mythical creatures and flowers. You can see it almost looks like an illuminated medieval sort of artwork here. The borders are surrounded in flowers, and it shares some information, some folklore or information about the various flowers and mythical creatures and things surrounding unicorns. This book was inspired by the medieval unicorn tapestries, and that's where a lot of this information came from. So if you love history, unicorns, gardening, flowers, all that sort of thing, I would highly recommend The Unicorn Alphabet. So that was a reread for me, and it was a really nice book to revisit. Then the next book I read, also a children's book. I have the whole series of this book. This is illustrated by Paul Galdone, written by Ruthven Todd, and this is called Space Cat. I have back here 3 more in the series that I'll be reading this year as well. At least I hope to. This book was published in 1952, so it's got some of that mid-century charm. Talks about this trip to outer space. This cat is a cat of a U.S. astronaut, and he ends up getting to go to outer space with his astronaut owner, and they make all sorts of interesting discoveries when they land on the moon. Of course, very fascinating little story about landing on the moon from a 1950s perspective. So I thought that was really, really fun. I can't wait to read more of this story. There's not very many illustrations, but the ones that are really adorable, of this really funny space cat. This really funny cat who loves to hang out with his astronaut owner and go on all of these adventures and helping to save the day. So yes, very, also a highly recommended, really cute children's book. I think this would also be a fun book to read with a child when my grandchildren are a little bit older. I would love to read through this with them, and I can't wait, again, to read the rest of that series. Next, I do collect golden books, and I'm always looking for new fun ones to add to my collection. One day I think it would be really fun to fill my golden book collection and go through and read some of those old favorites that I have. This one is about King Charles, so I just wanted to read a little bit of history about King Charles. Now that he is the new king, I thought that that would be really fun. So I picked up that and gave that a quick read. It was pretty good. And then next I did read a non-children's children's book. This is a nonfiction book called The Golden Mole. This is such an interesting book. It's called The Golden Mole and Other Living Treasure. It is by Catherine Rundell, and it's got illustrations by Taylor Baldwin. And each chapter is about a different unique animal and information, just unique information about all these really interesting animals, animals that you don't typically read about. Some of them are common, more common animals like giraffes and lemurs and the hermit crab and the seal and the bear. But also we have like the wombat and the hedgehog and the seahorse and pangolin. The list goes on and on. Very nice collection of interesting little stories and information about all of these different animals. It was so fun to read. I would just read one chapter at a time and learn about the different animals. I would definitely recommend this book. It was really fun. The golden mole is one of the creatures that you learn about in this book. The book is also really pretty. It's got some gold detail there on the cover. Definitely a great book to read. If you love animals, I would definitely recommend this book. The next book I read was a middle grade chapter book and also a bit of a mystery. I really loved this. This was Enid Blyton's The Famous Five book. This is the first book, Five on a Treasure Island. This is a beautiful hard copy edition with these foil boats here. I believe I have the majority of the collection of The Famous Five now. I had only, I think, the first 5 books, but after I read this, I bought the rest of them because I loved it that much. And I definitely plan on reading through the series over the next year or so. Very much like reminiscent of like the Scooby-Doo gang and their adventures, but also really sort of old-fashioned and sweet. Let's see, it was written, this was first published in 1942, so definitely a more vintage feel to that, but just wonderful. A great story. The pace of this story was really wonderful. The mystery was pretty interesting and intriguing. I just kept wanting to read this book to find out what happened. So very, very fun story. I am very much looking forward to reading more of The Famous Five books. There are quite a few of them and quite a bit of fun. And sticking with the mystery theme, I love cozy mysteries, and I picked up this series of books from Susan Wittig Albert. This is her Cottage Tales of Beatrix Farm series, and this one is The Tale of Hilltop Farm. So this is about Beatrix Potter. It's a fiction story, a mystery series based on Beatrix Potter's time when she bought a farm in a rural area of England. And so it kind of puts her in that time and space, some of her writing and some of her animals, and the animals that she of course based the Beatrix Potter children's books on. I also have up here, I believe, over on this side of my bookshelves, there is a collection of Beatrix Potter books that I need to reread. Many of them I have read, but I'd like to reread them. As I'm reading through this mystery series, I do have the whole set of these to read. I've finished book number 1, The Tale of Hilltop Farm, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun mystery story, very cozy, not scary at all, really. And it was also really neat to imagine Beatrix Potter in this setting. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of this series as well. I've already started book number 2, and I'll share about that one here in a minute. And next, I walked into my library just recently, about a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this book that I've heard a bit about from other book vloggers. I saw it sitting there ready to be checked out. So I decided to check it out and read it right away, and I definitely couldn't put it down. It was one of those books I read in 2 days. It is called The Golden Spoon, and it is by Jessa Maxwell. It is a new book, and it says the delicious combination of Clue and the Great British Bake Off kept me turning my pages all night. That is a quote from Janet Ivanovich. And so yes, it's a mystery in the setting of a bake-off type series. It doesn't take place in Britain, it takes place in America, at someone's manor house here. And It's quite the interesting mystery. It definitely, again, it kept me turning the pages. I will say a lot of it was a little bit on the predictable side, but sometimes I like it when cozy mysteries are a little bit predictable, so I can feel like I was right there along with the main sleuth helping to solve the mystery. Something interesting about this book, though, is it is told from multiple perspectives. Every chapter is written from the perspective of one of the characters in the book. All the different contestants in the baking show, some of the leaders, the hosts of the baking show, and things like that. So at first it was a little bit tricky to kind of keep up on who was who, and you're kind of hearing it from that different angle. So it was a little bit interesting to try to figure that out. But again, it was a page turner. It was fun to read. I really liked the way the mystery turned out, and it was a really fun book. A fun, cozy mystery. So The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. I read that and really enjoyed it. Also, I would recommend that for anyone who loves a cozy mystery. Or The Great British Bake Off. Next, I read another chapter book, a children's, like a middle grade chapter book. I thought this book, when I bought it, I thought it was just another cozy mystery. It is called Absolutely Truly, a Pumpkin Falls Mystery. And this was book 1 in the series by Heather Vogel Frederick. Again, yes, I thought that I was about to read a cozy mystery, and a few pages in I realized that I was reading a children's, a middle grade type of a mystery. So it was just a really fun little mystery. They find a note in a book, a copy of Charlotte's Web, and have to go on this sort of treasure hunt throughout the town of Pumpkin Falls. A girl has just moved there with her family, and she's having some struggles fitting in and enjoying her new life in this small town. I won't give away too many spoilers. There's a lot of family dynamics that come into play with this book that I thought were pretty charming. The small town was also pretty charming. It read a little bit like a Hallmark type, town, some sort of very iconically imaginative happy little town. Of course, with a name like Pumpkin Falls, a town would have to be kind of like that. So I did enjoy this. I can't decide if I want to read the next in the series or not. I believe there are 3 or 4 more books in this series, or I think there's 4, but 1 has not come out yet, something like that. The 4th one out is like a very harvesty themed one. That's why I was hoping to get through this if it was a regular cozy mystery, but again, it's not. So not 100% sure. I did like it, but it didn't hold my interest quite as much as some of the others, and it was very long-winded for a middle grade book. I will say it was a lot to get through. A lot of descriptions and stuff that maybe could have been shortened up just a little tiny bit. I still enjoyed it. It's still pretty good. I think children might like this if they like mysteries. So this book here, Absolutely Truly, a Pumpkin Falls Mystery, and I'll have to let you know if I decide to read number 2. Let's see, the most recent 2 books, let's see, I read this one next. I just finished this yesterday. This is called Murder in Miniature, and if you are here normally to watch my videos, you know I love dollhouse miniatures and collect them, so this book was right up my alley. Combined dollhouse miniatures and cozy mystery. I read one of her other books. This is the first in the series, I believe. I read one other of the book in the series, I think a couple of years ago. And then I purchased book 1 and 2 because I had read book 3, and now I come to find out there are quite a few more. A lot of them are out of print, but you can still get a hold of the copies pretty inexpensively. So if you like miniatures and cozy mysteries, this is a fun read. Again, it was a page turner. I read this again in about a day and a half or 2 days. It was really fun. She has a granddaughter in this book who kind of helps her, and also with her miniature building. It's pretty fun. And in the back of the book, it even gives tips for building miniatures, ideas for making miniatures, which I thought was really, really fun. So Murder in Miniature, that was a really, really fun one. I'll also go back to Absolutely Truly. One good thing about this book, I love it when books have recipes. And this book did have a recipe for Aunt True's mini pumpkin whoopie pies in the back, and it sounds really good. I may have to try to make up a batch, and if I do, I'll have to share that with you in the next book vlog. The next book I read, also a book I finished just last night. After I finished Murder in Miniature, I finished this book. I'm not sure I'm saying the title of this book correctly. It's called The Didakoi, I think, by Rumer Godden. Again, I'm not even sure I'm saying her last name correctly. This book was recommended to me a while ago. I can't remember who recommended this book, but it is so interesting. This is a book written, let's see. This book was also written in 1972, and it is about a young girl who is half Romani gypsy, a traveler, half traveler. This is about a main character. Her name is Kizzy. There was also apparently a show back in the 70s also made about this book called Kizzy. And this is about a girl who is half gypsy, half Romani gypsy. And it's kind of a sad book. She faces quite a few really sad moments that she has to overcome. It has a very magical fairy tale ending. But again, I just couldn't put this book down. I love folk tales and learning about different cultures. The traveler culture has always interested me. So reading this book was definitely one that I have been looking forward to, and it did not disappoint. I really enjoyed this. If you also enjoy learning about other cultures and are interested in the traveler culture, this would be a really fun book. It is a children's book, but there are a lot of harsh moments in this, so I'd say if your child is a little bit younger and they're reading this, you probably want to preview it a little bit first. But for me, it was a wonderful read. I really enjoyed it. Again, I couldn't put it down. I finished it very quickly. It is a pretty small book, but very, very fun. And now for some of the books that I'm currently reading. I have been reading Anne of Green Gables this year. I kind of took a break on it. I tend to have this habit of reading about 3 or 4 books at once. So I'll put one down for a bit and then finish some others. And sometimes those books will catch my interest and I'll end up reading them before going back to this. So I do, of course, love Anne of Green Gables. It is one of my favorite stories. I loved the series Avonlea when I was in my 20s. I absolutely loved that. It's one of my favorite series of all time. Recently on a trip to the thrift store, I actually found an in the box like new Anne of Green Gables doll that I'll have to share with you in a future vlog. Perhaps when I'm done reading this book and I share about my thoughts on this. Of course, this is an absolutely wonderful book, a classic, and just a beautiful book. I have also got the series of the Anne of Green Gables novels, and I would like to continue reading through those throughout this year as well. Throughout this year and next year, I'm sure. The next book that I'm currently reading is The Tale of Holly Howe. This is book number 2 in the Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter by Susan Wittig Albert, and it is also fun. I started this a little while ago, put it down, and picked it back up last night when I was done reading my other books, and now I'm really into this. So I definitely am looking forward to getting back to reading this later today when I finish up my work. Again, this is a cozy mystery taking place in the English rural countryside. So fun book. I'm excited to finish reading this. And then I've got 2 other books ready to go here for October, the beginning of October. And in my next video, I'm hoping to share with you at the beginning of October my Halloween bookshelf. I'm going to empty one of my bookshelves and fill it with all of my Halloween books, my children's Halloween books for my grandchildren, as well as some of the classic monster books like Frankenstein and Dracula and things like that, and some of the books that I plan to read this October. Last year I read Frankenstein and it was really wonderful by Mary Shelley. This year I hope to tackle Dracula. But the first book that I'm going to start reading here any day now, probably even later on today, is a fun Halloween-themed cozy mystery called Murder at the Pumpkin Pageant. This is by Darcy Hannah. It says it is from the Beacon Bake Shop mystery series. I don't think I've read any of those yet, so I'm kind of excited for that. It says it includes delicious recipes, so that's always fun. Again, I love baking and cooking, so I'll have to see if there's any recipes in here to try, and I will have to share with you what I think of this book when I'm done reading it. Again, that's Murder at the Pumpkin Pageant. It looks like a fun read to kick off October. And another book that I'd like to read. This book has been on my list for a little while now to read. This is a children's classic middle grade book. This is The Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Aiken. And I just thought that the tone of this book looked perfect for fall. And also this book was mentioned a couple of times in this book. They are running, I forgot to mention, in Absolutely Truly, they are running a bookstore. The family is running a bookstore, and they mentioned a bunch of their favorite books, and one of those was The Wolves of Willoughby Chase. So I thought I would go ahead and give this a read as well this month. So I don't know much about this book. I only know that it comes highly recommended by a lot of people. So this is another book that I will be reading this week, and I'll have to share with you what I think of it in the next reading vlog. So that is what I have been up to so far this year. Lots of books that I've read. I've enjoyed all of them so far, and I've got a couple more to finish up. My Anne of Green Gables, and the next in the Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter Cozy Mystery series, and then my Halloween Cozy Mystery and a children's classic. So I'm excited to read the rest of those, and I'm excited to be sharing these book vlogs with you. So I hope you will join me next Friday when I set up my Halloween bookshelf and share with you some of the things that I'll be reading in October. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.